just about everything because all we do is look at world problems and give up.
Oh, okay, we're on. We're live. Welcome to Sports Steady Radio, the night shift. Sports Steady. Follow us on social media, twitter.com/sportssteady. Also, we have the link in the description box if you want to join the conversation on any topic that we are talking about here tonight. I'm going to put the link in the description in the comments as well. So you guys can see it, hopefully. So now, you know what? Something caught my attention about, I don't know, like probably like 2 hours ago as I'm scrolling through social media, and you see the the post about Ben Simmons, right? So Ben Simmons, who has been around the NBA for a little bit, he's never lived up to the hype for a guy of Ben Simmons' talent. Right? He's only 27 years old, right? So he's not old in the NBA world. He's even from the basketball world, he's still fairly young. But because remember when he was the first overall pick, I think he played like 1 year at LSU, and so this guy is 27 years old. So I see why people will still be like, "Yo, we could get this guy, or he still has a chance to be great." So far and so far, and but the thing is, it's like at 27, at this point of Ben Simmons' basketball career, you would expect him to be probably arguably the best player in the league from a talent standpoint, right? He has that kind of skill set. Despite his setbacks, he is a two-time all defensive guy. He's been rookie of the year. He's been an all NBA guy. He's led the league in steals. Uh, he's a three-time all star. So, but last season, 42 games, 6.6 rebounds, 6 assists, and these are his numbers. So he's never really gotten going, right? So he came into the league with a foot injury, so he didn't even play in his first year, right? Foot injury. Then his second year, he showed some promise, played 81 games, started 81 games, put up solid numbers, right? 16, 8, and 8, which is pretty good. That's really his first year, even though it was his second year, technically, but it was his first season on the court. And then his third year, which is his second year healthy, he makes an all-star team, 22 years old, averaging 17, 8, and 7, or 17, 8, and 9 if you want to round off the numbers, whatever. He's averaging over he's still in a half a game. So then between ages, then at 23, he plays only 57 games, but he still manages to become an all-star, right? Same thing. So, and then he has the holdout, the back injury. And now with Brooklyn, he had the issues there. Played 42 games and 22, 23. Didn't do nothing. So, but people are not giving up on him because they're like, man, all he has to do is develop a jump shot. He'll be unstoppable. I don't know I think it's a little bit more to that, to be honest. We don't really know what's going on in the mind of Ben Simmons. But I know that every time I go to social media and people are talking about Ben Simmons, it's like, oh, Ben Simmons this, Ben Simmons that. Like every time is always, you would think that Ben Simmons is on his way to the Hall of Fame. He might be, it's like a cult out there of a Ben Simmons. I don't know if it's like a good cult or a anti Ben Simmons cult. I don't know. But what I do know is that the conversation might need to be had at some point that he might be on the Mount Rushmore, or at least in the rotation for NBA busts. Now you can say, how could it be a bust? The guy was all defense, rookie of the year, all NBA. I get all that. He's a three-time All Star. I'm not saying he's a top bust. Obviously there are guys who are deserving of the bust label, but we're talking about a guy that's the number one overall pick, and I think the reason why no one is considering this situation is because a lot of number one overall picks just don't never pan out. So even by the standards of all time number one overall picks, Ben Simmons is still outperforming like almost 80% of the number one overall picks, right? So from that standard, you're like, well, technically he's still better than like he's at 27, he's still done more with his limited basketball uh time on the court, right? Because he's never played more than I think only 1 year. It was the second year he played more than 81, 80 games. Every other year is like 79 or lower, 57, 58. Missed another year, then 42. So, but even at with that, he's still more successful than probably 90% of the number one overall picks in the last 30, 40 years, right? So, with that being said, let's just for I'm gonna go back to the draft. I'm gonna take his class. I'm not gonna use the guys that came after him because that's a short period of time. But let's look at all the number one picks before him. So uh he's still okay in his class. He's number three, I believe, in win shares. Let's go to 2015. Who's number one pick? Karl Anthony Towns. Okay, no, I don't think he beats out Towns. Let's go 2014. Andrew Wiggins. No, it doesn't beat him either. Anthony Bennett, obviously, beats him. Anthony Davis, no. Kyrie, no. John Wall, mm, I don't know. John Wall has a higher win share all time. I don't think he beats. I think I'll give John Wall the edge on this, just because of the availability for. I mean, John Wall's put in 11 years. He's played 647 games. He when healthy, he was pretty good. I mean, 43% shooting. Jesus, terrible. So I'll give Wall the edge on that. So Blake Griffin, I give Blake the edge on that. Derrick Rose, obviously. Okay, he beats out. Oh, so maybe I'm so far he only beats out like two guys before him, Greg Oden and Anthony Bennett. I'll give him. He beats out Bargnani, Bogut. Yeah, Dwight Howard. No, LeBron definitely no. Yao Ming. I'm gonna say no. Kwame, yes. Kenya Martin, definitely. No, I guess okay. So I guess since like '99, he only beats out like maybe three. So my original point is right. We need to start looking at Ben Simmons as a possible bust, despite the few little accolades he has, because he only really beats out like three or four guys since like 1999, right? Since '99, I'll start from '99. Let me see if I can go further back. '98, Ola McCandy, Duncan, no. Iverson, no. Joe Smith, I'm gonna say no. Yeah, he beats Joe Smith. Joe Smith was a role player. Glenn Robinson, even though he has I'm gonna say no from Glenn Robinson. I think Glenn was pretty good. Big dog. Weber, no. Shaq, no. Larry Johnson, no. Derek Coleman, no. All right, so let's start from 1990. Right, so from 1990, let's see. Let's do the numbers. 1990, one, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight. So 8 guys since 1990, from 90 to 2016, and so only 8 guys, and two of those guys you could it's pretty close, but they didn't have the hype. So out of all the 8 guys, Ben has had the most hype out of all those 8 guys that he beats out slightly since 1990 for his number one picks. So we're talking about 16 years, half of the draft, half of the classes in 16 years. 16 years, I said? No, 26 years. Excuse me. My math is like fucked up on that. I said 1990. So 8 out of 26, right? 8 out of 26. He only beats out 8 of those guys. Everyone else clears Ben Simmons all time for number one picks. So we have to start having a conversation about Ben Simmons probably being a bust. The last 20, and we're not even counting the guys that came after him, because we could probably add to that number, right? Like if you go 2017, okay, he beats Fultz. DeAndre Ayton, I think, clears him, at least right now. Zion, okay, he beats Zion. Anthony Edwards, he doesn't beat him. Edwards will pass him, I think. Kate Cunningham might be the worst number one pick so far, at least from a win share standpoint, in like the last 30 years. But we think that's going to get better. Remember, he just got in the league. So we don't like to use those sample sizes, of course. But the point is that Ben Simmons has not delivered. And that's the point, guys. He's had enough time in the NBA. He has not delivered at all. He hasn't delivered. And you guys want to sit there and pretend that, because you like Ben and you think he's great, he has all this talent, you think that he's only 27, so he has time to turn it around. Look, the guy came in the league at 19. Okay, I mean, it's going to take him 10 years to turn it around. 10 years? Come on now. I'm going to say it right here. This is the season right here. Because in most cases with guys at 27 that don't really take off, that are stars, right? Didn't have injuries blocking them like Ben Simmons does. Will he ever become a guy? Will he ever become all NBA again? I say no. I say no, he will never be all NBA again. And the only chance he might have to be close to all NBA is if he ends up on a team with another star player that makes him look good, that he can play off of. That'd be the only time. That would be the only chance he gets. Now, can he still be a good NBA pro? Yeah, of course. Because he's only 27. He has a skill set. The guy is 6'10". Has skills. He can play both ends of the floor. He can't shoot, but he can play both ends of the floor. And so yes, it's very possible. But I think he could be very effective as a third option, like kind of like in a Draymond Green type of role. Like that's his role. Draymond Green. He if he could be a Draymond Green's a career triple single, but this guy could be an upgraded version of Draymond Green if he's into it mentally. Um, and he'll be a upgraded version. The reason why it's version because he's better offensively. He's not better. He's not a better shooter, but he's better offensively, meaning he can score in many different ways because he has the skill, the athleticism to do that. But he's gonna have to understand that. Look, man, I'm not the number one guy no more. I'm not even the number two guy anymore. He needs to mentally tell himself that, and it's gonna be hard because you got to remember this guy was the number one overall pick like 5 years ago, what 6, 7 years ago, and he's only 27. So it's not easy to get to let that go. It's not easy. So we'll see what happens. I mean, we really will. But honestly, I just don't think he will ever be all NBA again. And guys come into the NBA and you've seen guys improve and develop a jump shot over years, like Jason Kidd wasn't a great shooter when he came in. Now he's left the NBA with over 1,000 threes. J.R. Smith was not a good shooter when he first came to the league. He was known as a dunker, a slasher, right? He wasn't even considered that kind of player. He left a lot of threes. Guy towards the end of his career became a 3-point threat where you couldn't leave JR open. Um, so Ben, you say yeah, he has time, right? He could become a lethal shooter in like 2 years. But I think the clock is ticking on Ben. I say this, and I said this about other guys because you've seen talented players all the time in the NBA that were really good, talented guys coming into the league, and they just mentally could not put it together. Like Michael Beasley. Michael Beasley was the most talented guy in his draft class. It wasn't even close, right? Let's go all the way back to that draft class real quick. If you saw Beasley at Kansas State, this was what 2008, I think it was 2008. This guy was a complete monster at Kansas State, freshman. The stuff that he was doing, he was the most talented player physically, offensively than any player in that class. Now, some people say OJ Mayo, no, OJ Mayo was good, but he was physically better. Physically, right? OJ Mayo was your typical, prototypical size wing, but Beasley he had a skill set at like 6'10, 6'9, right? It's one thing for Mayo. Mayo was like what 6'5, 6'4, great skills. A bunch of guys at his size was like that, but Michael Beasley at 6'9, 6'10. Some people say 6'11, whatever. I don't know. I think it was more like 6'10. His skill set at the power forward spot. Remember, that position wasn't the best, the deepest position at the time. So you probably thought if this guy can get into the league, a lot of the aging power forwards were at the tail ends of their careers, the Chris Webbers, and many of these guys. It was a revolutionized that position with the stretch fours, right? A lot of stretch fours were coming in. Kevin Loves and all these guys. Beasley could have had a decade of dominance at the four. But for some reason, he didn't put it together. He couldn't get it done. He was mentally out of it. For whatever reason, don't know. But he was the best offensive player in that class by far. I don't care what anybody say. I know Derrick Rose won MVP. I get it. But we talking about early Derrick Rose coming out of Memphis. Derrick Rose was good. He was on a really good program in Memphis. But from a skill set, talented, Michael Beasley was better. He was just better. OJ Mayo was pretty good. Obviously, Westbrook was raw. Kevin Love was solid. Some pretty good players in that class. It was a nice class. It was a solid class. That class had a little bit of everything, right? You can find some defenders, some shooters, some like these guys could have grew into if they all went to the right situations, right? I mean, Herbert at 17 was a solid pick defensively out of Georgetown. JaVale McGee was solid. Not stars, but these are mid to late first round guys. JJ Hickson was okay for a while. Ryan Anderson was a stretch four guy. Courtney Lee was a perimeter defender out of Western Kentucky in 22. Remember, that was a good pick because Orlando, Courtney Lee ended up starting as the Magic was making a NBA Finals run with Courtney Lee. Then he had to guard Kobe, which was good luck with that. Serge Ibaka at 24 was a good pick. I mean, Nicholas Batum was solid. George Hill was good at 26. Not a bad class, right? DJ White out of Detroit was okay. JJ Giddens from Boston didn't really turn out much. Mario Chalmers was good at 34. So was DeAndre Jordan. I mean, there were some solid guys. Douglas Roberts had a decent, it was okay, role players. So that class was pretty good. And I still say that, in my opinion, I still believe we can't forget about Eric Gordon, who went seventh. Michael Beasley, to me, was the most talented guy in that class. And that class wasn't a slouch like some of the other ones. It's not the best class, obviously, all time, but the '08 class was solid. It was a solid class. Had a bunch of really good guys. Some all stars came out of that class. MVPs, right? Rose and Westbrook was MVP. Kevin Love used to put up monster numbers in Minnesota. DeAndre Ayton had a good run. Herbert was solid defensively for Indiana for years. So it wasn't bad. It was one of the better classes. Yeah, but maybe we'll do a draft class one day, decide. Because everybody talks about the 96 class, the 84 class, the 03 class. But maybe we need to break down some other classes. Because there's some underrated draft classes in between those classes that no one really talks about. So maybe we'll do that one day. I thought '08 was solid. '09 was pretty good too. It turned out to be pretty good, right? Blake Griffin was decent. Now Hashim Thabit was the bust of the bust, probably the worst second pick in the history of the sport. He only lasted 5 years. Memphis took him number 2 overall. And that was the year after taking OJ Mayo. Not OJ Mayo, excuse me. That was the year after taking Kevin Love, but they did the trade with Kevin Love and Mayo. Initially, Memphis took Love at 5, and they swapped out with Mayo, I guess, and with Memphis. And then, so then the following season, Memphis takes Hashim Thabit. So you got your 4 of the future in Kevin Love. You say, oh, okay, I'm going to go out and get a center, which I don't understand why you're doing that. Could you imagine if Memphis would have said, I'm talking about, I said Love. I meant you get your guard of the future, OJ Mayo, and then the following season, you're like, well, we're going to get a big to go with OJ Mayo. Well, you probably could have went, I don't know. What could they've done? Because I'm looking at this draft class, and whatever Memphis was wanting to do, I guess Memphis thought we get a center to anchor the middle for years to come to run with Mayo. So I guess at the time it probably made sense. But could you imagine if Memphis would have kept Love? And then the following season, now you have more options to draft a guard, right? You can get Harden, Evans, Curry, DeMar DeRozan potentially, Brandon Jennings, who knows? But That's just crazy. I know Minnesota has to be. Minnesota might be the team that's kicking themselves the most because they had Kevin Love and they drafted Rubio and Flynn back to back while Curry was sitting there on the board. Right? Curry, DeRozan, even Jennings probably would have been a better pick than uh, Flynn and Rubio. Right? Jennings had a nice run early, 50-point game. He was okay. But you gotta be kicking yourself in the head for that. You gotta be like, damn. Because you're looking down, like even because I know people say, well, Curry wasn't that good. Curry early on, you just didn't know. Okay, let's just say we give you that. But what about the other guy? There's other guys down the list that had pretty decent careers at guards. Drew Holiday, Ty Lawson was pretty good early on coming out. Jeff Teague was solid for years. Darren Collison was pretty good. So there was other guards who had better careers than Johnny Flynn, and you know, so that's just crazy. So there's really no excuse. And I know the Knicks are like, oh, we missed out on Curry by one pick. He took Jordan Hill. Maybe you should have took DeRozan. You could have took Jennings, Knicks. You could have took Ty Lawson. You could have took Jeff Teague, Drew Holiday, two-way guard. You could have took a few guys as well. Darren Collison was solid. Um, so the Knicks don't get no mercy here. Knicks are kind of pathetic anyway. Patty Mills went 55. Portland took Patty Mills at 55. I think that was a trade, though. Patty Mills played 14 years in the NBA. Solid player. Patty Mills, solid role player. We had Patrick Beverly at 42. Marcus Thornton was pretty solid, too. He didn't have a great NBA career, but he was solid in stretches. Right? I remember him in Sacramento briefly. Chase Budinger. Danny Green, 46, the Cleveland Cavaliers. A two-way guy, right? A 3-and-D guy. Developed pretty nicely. So, yeah. I mean, this was a solid class for decent role players. At least the guards were pretty good. The guards and the forwards. The bigs, not so much. Except for Blake. Like Hashim Thabit was terrible. Tyler Hansborough was suck. Earl Clark wasn't great at all. These are lottery picks that didn't do shit. Jordan Hill, 8th overall pick, nothing. So the bigs disappointed big time. Taj Gibson was a solid one at 26. He was pretty good. He was solid. You know, Taj Gibson. I think he's still playing. Was he with the Knicks last year? So he's still around. Let's go to 2010. John Wall. This class was good too. Another decent class, underrated class, led by John Wall. Evan Turner was solid until the injuries. Derek Favors was pretty good too for a while. He had stretches. I mean, he didn't live up to the hype, right? Coming out of Georgia Tech. It took him a while to get going. He had to get traded. But he was solid. He was part of that deal with that he was with New Jersey, but then they made that trade, him and a bunch of future first round picks for Darren Williams. Or they were trying to put together that team out in Jersey or Brooklyn, whatever. Favors, he gave 12 years in the league. Look, like if you're a top pick, lottery pick, you give 10 years in, that's solid, right? Whether you live up to the hype or not, I don't know. The Favors had talent, right? He was one of those fours. He was one of those power forwards, 6'9" power forward type that probably should have done more than what he did, right? Probably should have did more, but he did play almost 800 games, so Yeah, I give him that. Wes Johnson, a stretch, a big guy, not a big guy, but like a wing guy who can shoot, kind of like a 2-3 type of guy, which would, I think he would be pretty well in today's NBA. He might have been like a decade too soon for Wes Johnson. He was the fourth overall pick from Memphis. Memphis, they couldn't draft for a lick. I mean, Wes Johnson is not. You don't take that guy fourth overall, especially when you got Boogie Cousins on the board. Um, Now they had Kevin Love, so they probably didn't want to go Boogie and Love. But could you imagine Boogie and Love? They 4 and 5. Now Kevin was playing a bunch of five, stretch five. They were using him a lot. Boogie Cousins wasn't really known defensively, so that probably would have you know hurt it Minnesota a little bit. But they still had other bigs on the board. I mean, they could have went. They could have done some other moves. They could have traded down, got multiple picks later. I mean, did they have to take Wes Johnson? Right? There's some other decent players down here. Paul George at 10. Could you imagine Paul George at that 3 with Love at the 4 or 5? Minnesota could have been looking good there. Uh, Larry Sanders was a nice pick. He only lasted 6 years. Another guy with some issues, but Larry Sanders was a solid pro. He just up and quit. I remember. I think just up and quit at one point. Like he just said, I'm done playing. He was okay. I mean, defensively solid player. He didn't really he had stopped playing at like 24 years old or something. Like he just kind of just gave up. I don't know if he saw the writing on the wall. He was like, yeah, man, the NBA skill set. His skill set wasn't built for today's NBA or just because he came in the league after 2010. So NBA's changing, right? His skill set wouldn't have translated. He'd have been more better as like a pre 2010 guy, right? Like a defensive guy, Ben Wallace, Rodman type of defender. He wouldn't have done too well anyway. So maybe he got out. But he had other issues too. There was something going on where he just didn't want to play basketball. So that happens. Guys just say, you know what? Because guys like that who typically start playing basketball because they're like, oh, your size, your defense, you can jump, you can rebound. Those kind of guys are not really like crafting their skill set. So when you get to the NBA where you kind of really got to work on your game, now it's like, I went from playing basketball because I was bored and something to do, and I just became pretty good at this particular skill. Now I really got to work on my game to keep a job, right? Because I also think Milwaukee gave him a nice contract too. Like I believe Milwaukee gave him like a nice deal. He signed the new. I gotta look back. It happened a while ago, but he was looked at as like Milwaukee's. I don't know if he was going to be a franchise player, but they was going to invest. They invested in him pretty. They thought it was big things were coming for him, but I don't think he really wanted to be in the NBA. Like I don't think he was taking it that serious. But that's Eric Bledsoe, 18. Nice pickup right there. Bledsoe was solid pro. All right. Avery Bradley at 19 with Boston. Good pick. 12-year pro. Um, Trevor Booker gave you 8 years out of Clemson. You just like look down the list. Some of these guys played in the NBA they played into their second contracts, which is always a goal when you're drafted like late in the first round, second round. You want to make that second contract, and you see guys second round, a bunch of guys made second contracts, uh, or played pretty well. Hassan Whiteside, 33 for Sacramento. He played 10 years, a second round pick. Lance Stevenson, another guy, 10-year pro, second round pick, 40th overall. He played on those Indiana teams that were battling LeBron for years. Some guy named Belicha, but Jaki, I don't know that. He gave 7 years in the league. Solid pro, 8 points, 5 rebounds. That's good for a second round pick. Um, Landry Fields was a solid. He got a second contract. And then you had some guys who just didn't really pan out, who were highly converted coming out of high school that didn't really do much. That ended up falling in the draft, like Devin Ebanks out of West Virginia. Jeremy Evans out of Western Kentucky, 55th overall out of Utah. He played 7 years in the league. So the guy like that. I mean, so that class was pretty good. Solid draft class. Let's see, 2011, led by Kyrie Irving in that class. He was a top pick, but some people say that now. Solid class, right? Kyrie, Derek Williams did not live up to the hype, which is weird because I didn't think Derek Williams was. They liked his potential of being great, but he was a tweener, right? Tweener forward, didn't really have a defiant skill set. Like you really didn't know if this guy can be a future star in the NBA. But they swore by his skill set because these tweener guys in college can really gas you up, right? Like these guys who are like athletic, they can do a bunch of stuff, and you're like, oh my god, like these guys. Just like when had that run in the NCAA tournament, and they thought this guy was going to be great. Tyrus Thomas, remember? He was on nobody's radar, and all of a sudden, NCAA's tournament starts. This guy is like the best thing ever because he's 6'8", blocking shots. He's athletic. He's a freak, and he didn't have an NBA skill set though that would translate to a star in the NBA. He had a skill set that would keep him on a job. Like he could play a decade in the league in the right situation, but he didn't have that skill set that he was going to be a star. Right? He was undersized for the NBA level. Great in college. You could be a 6'8", 210-pound power forward in college, a center in college, and block shots. But in NBA, in the more physical NBA, that's not going to work. You got to put some weight on. You're going to have skills because you got to be able to shoot. You got to be able to dribble. But we've seen some of these guys and not their skill set didn't translate, but they sell the ownership on, oh, look, this guy is a freak. He can jump out the gym. We can get him here. We can have him for a decade. We can turn him into a superstar. And it doesn't pan out, right? Derek Williams, 7 years in the league. He only lasted 7 seasons and never really materialized into that star. Enes Freedom, now formerly known as Enes Cantor, pretty good pro year. I remember he was a raw talent too, talented guy, 6'11", 7-footer, 6'10" guy, had some really good skill set, but he got blackballed by the NBA because of his whole, the controversy and all that stuff with China and speaking out against that. But he gave 11 years in the NBA despite all that. Tristan Thompson, rebounder, right? It's a career 8 rebound guy. He's still in the league, I believe. 11 years in. Jonas Valanciunas, another guy, underrated guy. I mean, this class was pretty underrated. Valanciunas, who he's a solid pro. And these are the top 5 guys, right? So we don't even get Vesley. Jane Vesley was a bust, right? For number 6 of Washington. Remember that guy? He got all the hype. I think they showed his mom or something on TV, or his wife. I don't know. He only lasted 3 years. He was out the league after that rookie contract. Typically, after like 2-3 years, like the team, because when you sign your rookie first round pick, you get like the first year or two, and then the team decides, or 2 or 3. I don't know how it goes. I think it's 2 years or 3 years, and then the team decides to pick up the option or not. Obviously, Vesley didn't make it past year 3, and they said, "We're done with you. See you later." And that was that. Biombo, he got 12 years in the league, right? Brandon Knight at 9 years in the league. That's solid. This class was pretty good. You look at the whole first, everybody, almost every pick from 19, like 20, like let me see, 19, right? So 16, no, 15, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 14. Right? So 14 of the first 19 picks in that draft class, in the Kyrie Irving class, 2011, 14 of those guys lasted, 14 of the first 19 played at least a decade in the NBA. And if you add Brandon Knight, who played 9, you can round that off. But the only two guys who really didn't make it past their first contract in the first round picks were in those top 20 picks was Chris Singleton, and John Vesley. Everyone else got a second contract. Now, if you want to go through the rest of the draft class, Nolan Smith out of Duke didn't see a second contract, and I believe Jawan Johnson didn't see one. He only lasted one season. But everyone else, only like 3 guys in that first round did not make it to a second contract. That's a good draft class. When you have a first round pick where out of 30 guys taken, only like 3 don't get a second contract, that's a successful draft class. And we're talking about, that's a 2011 class. And I didn't even get started on the rest of the class, right? Jimmer Fredette was pretty good. Wasn't great. He didn't live up to his potential at BYU, but he still made a second contract. Thompson, Allen Burks played 12 years. Marquise Morris, 12 years. Marcus Morris, Kawhi Leonard, Nikola Vucevic, Iman Shumpert, Tobias Harris, uh, Reggie Jackson, Corey Joseph was pretty good. Jimmy Butler, obviously, we know Jimmy Butler. And then the second round has some guys make a second contract too. Guys like Bonjan Bojanovic, Kyle Singler, Shelvin Mack, Chandler Parsons, John Liu. I don't know who the hell that is. Davis Betrays. I know him. He's that shooter that San Antonio had for a couple of years. He you know. No. Oh. Lavoy Allen. I remember him. DeAndre Liggins. Etwan Moore. There's a bunch of Isaiah Thomas, the last pick of that class, 11 years in the league, who's still not, he's not retired yet, technically. So, yeah, that class was pretty good. That was a deep class. That might be one of the deepest classes in the NBA in league history. Because, like I said, we always talk about the 84 class with Michael, but they only had like a handful of guys that were really good. 96 was pretty deep. 96 might be the deepest as far as star power. And franchise players. 03 was pretty deep, but 03 was more so top heavy. But 11, you can throw 2011 and I said 08 was pretty good too, but 2011 was sneaky solid. As far as like depth, like not like franchise all-star depth. I'm just saying like solid NBA players, guys who played decades in the NBA, who made their second contracts. I mean, the whole first round, except for like 3 guys, made a second contract. That's a good draft class. And the funny thing is, like with those guys, you can move those guys around, and if they was in the different situations, they might have panned out better, right? And obviously, the top of that draft class, Derek Williams was like probably a disappointment for sure, and John Vesley, who went sixth, a disappointment. Um, I think even Jimmer at 10 was slightly disappointment, even though he did make a second contract. I thought he was still a disappointment because he didn't live up to Jimmer Fredette, to what we were expecting him to live up to. So, uh, what else? Let me go to the next class here. So 2012, this was the Anthony Davis class. This was a pretty good class too. Uh, I don't think it was as deep as 2011, but it was top heavy, right? Anthony Davis, Michael Kidd Gilchrist did not pan out, but he did get to another contract. Bradley Beal, Dion Waiters, they all made second contracts. Bradley Beal is one of the highest paid players in the league. Anthony Davis is the NBA title champion. Thomas Robinson made a second deal, even though he wasn't great in the NBA. But he was one of those guys too. Like, he's a forward, he has skill, he's raw talent. Then you got Damian Lillard, who might be this. I mean, he might be the second best in the class. I guess it depends on who you ask. If you say Anthony Davis is better, some people say Lillard is the best in the class, and he went sixth. Um, Harrison Barnes, pretty good, 11 years. Terrence Ross, 11 years. Andre Drummond, Austin Rivers, Miles Leonard. I mean, a lot of these guys all played. They all went to the second deal, except for uh, Royce White. He didn't make it past 1 year. I don't know why I felt like Royce White played more, but he didn't get a second deal. Kendall Marshall didn't. And then the end of the first round, Fab Melo, Festus Ezeli, Marquise Teague, Perry Jones, they didn't see a second deal. But a few guys in the second round saw second contracts, right? I think this class might have been the best second round draft class in one of the best second round classes, right? We talk about guys like Jay Crowder, Draymond Green, Chris Middleton, Will Barton. These are all second round guys. Mike Scott was pretty good. Darius Miller was solid, not great, but he was okay. Kyle O'Quinn was decent role players. So yeah. So this class was a pretty good second round class when it comes to second rounders. 2013, we had Anthony Bennett, who has a career 0.5 win share. Anthony Bennett was the worst. He didn't make it to a second contract. This class was solid as far as the later part of the class, like far as picking off guys to fill out your roster, like who turned out to be decent. None of these guys were stars though, right? Like Oladipo was not a star. Otto Porter Jr., who people really liked, he didn't turn out to be a star, even though these guys have solid numbers. But no, there were really no stars in this upper part of this class, even though a lot of these guys did play 10 years in the league. 9, 10 years, right? Kyle Singler. It's Kyle Singler. Cody Zeller, 10 years in. Alex Lynn, 10 years in. I think he was on Sacramento's bench in the playoffs. These are all role players, though. Like, a lot of these guys are role players who were drafted in the top of the lottery. Nolan's Noel, Ben McLemore, Katavious Caldwell Pope, Trey Burke, CJ McCollum, who was an all-star with Damian Lillard. Steven Adams, Michael Carter Williams, Kelly Olynyk, Shabazz Muhammad, Giannis obviously by far the best in this class because he's the NBA title MVP champion. But a lot of names, this class had a lot of names that just did not pan out to be stars. I think Giannis was the only one, right? I mean, Oladipo's a solid pro, but he's not a star. He's an all-star talent, right? He's capable of being an all-star. Right? He's a career 17, 5, and 4. I don't even think he's ever been an all-star. Let me see. Oh yeah, he's been a two-time all-star. Yeah, so he's an all-star. He led the league in steals. He was an all NBA guy, all defense guy. So yeah, Oladipo was a decent player. He might be the second best player in this class behind Giannis Antetokounmpo, but Antetokounmpo has Victor Oladipo cleared by a mile. Like it's not even close. So, um, yeah, and, but Oladipo might be the second best player, at least in the class. Uh, from at least from a talent standpoint. Rudy Gobert was okay. He found him late at 27. A lot of these guys were solid pros, but none of these guys were stars. I know Gobert was defensive player of the year and all that, but I don't consider Rudy Gobert a star, a superstar. Maybe an all star, but not a superstar. So this draft had like maybe a couple all stars after Giannis. Giannis was the lone superstar, it turned out. Let me see the rest of the class. Yeah, I mean, no one else. The second round was dreadful. Nothing there. Mike Muscula played 10 years, second round pick, but nothing else really materialized. A lot of good names though. I mean, a lot of guys who were pretty good going into college. Right, you got some names on here, right? Pierre Jackson out of Baylor was solid. Glenn Rice Jr., Georgia Tech, Isaiah Cannon. I mean, these are some names. Alan Crabb. These were names of guys who you thought would have been good pros, right? Archie Goodwin, uh, um, Reggie Bullock, who had promise, Gorgie Dang, Shane Larkin didn't even make it to a second contract. Schroeder was solid. Shabazz Muhammad, people thought would be good too. I mean, he only made like one, barely made it to a second contract. So, but none of those guys really panned out. That class was probably one of the disappointing classes as a whole. So we love to talk about Anthony Bennett as being the bus of that class. Obviously, he is a bus, but um, the rest of that class was probably just as disappointing, as far as like them reaching their level of I mean, like every draft class, you hope to have like a handful of guys that will become stars because that's the point of the draft. Like, no one said that this class was a bad class. Like some classes, you say, okay, well, maybe one or two guys are going to be really great, and everyone else is going to be okay. But this class, I remember this class. They were talking about a handful of guys they were expecting to be stars, and it just didn't happen. It just didn't happen. I think the only superstar out of this class was Giannis. And that took him a few years to get there, right? It wasn't like it happened immediately. So 2014, led by Andrew Wiggins. You remember the draft day, the trade, LeBron didn't want to play with Wiggins, or he wanted Kevin Love so badly. He was like, give me some help. So, but Wiggins, who was the top of the class, think about this. If we redrafting this again, do you think LeBron trades the top pick, or does he keep it? What's the selling point for Cleveland if they take, I don't know, Nikola Jokic? Will LeBron sacrifice and wait? Would he have waited for Jokic to develop? And how fast would Jokic have developed, right? Because we know Jokic now is a stud. but Jokic went 41st overall. And mind you, it's not like the Clevelands could have still had Jokic. They could have took him at 33, right? They could have still gotten him because they take Wiggins, they trade Wiggins, they trade, and I think that trade happened like later on or at some point. Uh, they trade him after they picked him. So save Cleveland and say, you know what, we're gonna keep Wiggins, and then maybe later on in the draft you pick up Jokic at 33. I wonder what LeBron would have said about that. Well, LeBron would have been okay with that. I don't know, but I think the draft. I think they traded. That was like the agreement to trade before LeBron came back because I think free agency happened after the draft. So they LeBron probably told him, "Hey man, you got to trade that pick. Get me Kevin Love if you want me to sign here." You know, because no one knew about Jokic at that point. This was like way back. Let me see what Jokic did his rookie year. Yeah, Jokic was like 10 points per game rookie year. He played 80 games, started only 55, played 21 minutes. Even his second year, he didn't play a lot, even though he put up some pretty good numbers. I think after that second season, when he started 59 games and played, he was only playing 27 minutes a night. But for a guy only playing half a game, pretty much, right? Because it's 48 minutes in a game. So 24 minutes is a half. This guy's playing 27 minutes and he's putting up 17, 10, and 5 at 21 years old. And he's only starting 59 games. He plays 73, starts 59. How does that even happen? So what do? You're like, this guy's for real. And the guy didn't even make an all-star team. And even at that point, he putting up all-star numbers in his second season, didn't make the all-star team. So now they're like, third year, okay, you're gonna be starting now. You're 22 years old, you're gonna start you 32 minutes a night. Still not really a lot of minutes for a 22-year-old NBA starter. That's really good. So they give him a few more minutes. We'll give you 4 more minutes a game. See what you could do with that. So he comes back, he averages 19, 11, and 6 on almost a block and over a steal in 32 minutes. I'm like, oh shit. But that wasn't even good enough to be an all-star in the NBA. That wasn't even good enough to be on the all-star team, to get named an all-star. Are you kidding me? This guy was good in his second year. So, and then just think about this. If he's playing with a LeBron, right? I think he would have put up decent numbers in year one. If Cleveland would have took, now he's a nobody, so it would have been a hard sell for LeBron. But could you imagine if LeBron would have said, you know what? Like LeBron's supposed to be let's just say one of his homeboys say, yeah, man, that Jokic guy, yo, tell Cleveland to draft him, man. Like this guy is going to be good. He's going to be good. I know. We don't know who he is, but I got this film. I just saw him. I was just out there in Serbia last week. This guy's legit, and no one knows about him. And then he tells Cleveland, yeah, don't take Joe Harris at 33. How about you draft this Jokic kid, and I'll sign with you, right? And maybe they could still make the deal for Kevin Love. Cause think about it. Now they have Jokic. They trade Wiggins for Love. So you got Love, Jokic at the 5. Cause did they have a 5 at that point? Or was it Tristan Thompson? I don't even remember. I know Tristan came in the year. Tristan was in 20. Who was the center in Cleveland at that point? I don't remember. I think it was Tristan Thompson, if I'm not mistaken. I think it was Tristan Thompson. But just think about that. You got Jokic waiting. Yeah, Tristan was fourth overall. So they kind of already had a big at that point. But you're like, fuck it. You go out and you give me goddamn Jokic, who obviously proved he was good enough by year two. He might have would have been good enough early on if he playing with a veteran like LeBron, right? Because he would have seen it. Oh, this guy can pass. Remember, Jokic in year one. Let me go back and find this. Was already showing his skill set as a passer by year two, right? Playing 27 minutes a night, averaging 5 assists as a big. 5 assists, 10 rebounds, 17 points. I mean, I think immediately LeBron would have seen this guy like, oh, we could have built this. LeBron might have stayed in Cleveland and won multiple titles. Now hindsight is 2020, obviously. I mean, like, can't predict the future here, but I know Jokic didn't make an All-Star team until like year 4, but this guy was putting up All-Star numbers by year 2 at 21 years old. He was putting up All-Star numbers by year 2. So LeBron would have been patient. I mean, Love. Remember, Jokic would have been a late pick. It wouldn't have cost Cleveland nothing. Even if they trade the Wiggins to get Kevin Love, you still have enough at this point to run the table. And then remember, Kevin Love also got hurt, I think, in the second year, or was that the first year? What year was this? This was this was the year that they made to the finals, I believe. Let me go back and look. NBA. This is 2015. Yeah, they won the title in 15-16. So we would have seen Jokic would have got some airtime because didn't what you call it get hurt. Think about that. Right? Think about it. Let me look. Okay, Kevin Love was still there. He was good. But look, I'm looking at they didn't even have a center. Yeah, Tristan Thompson was the center. He was the undersized center. But could you imagine how well that offense would have looked with Jokic? How that team would have looked with Jokic instead of Tristan Thompson? Now Thompson was good. I mean, he was a good rebounder, but that's all he did. He ain't do nothing else. Jokic could rebound. Jokic could do exactly what Tristan doing. Could you just imagine two passing bigs like Love with the outlet passes and Jokic with his skill set? Could you imagine that? That would have been pretty freaking crazy. And here's the real question. Knowing how good Jokic was in year 2, like I said, he put up all-star numbers, but he was not an all-star. Cleveland comes back in 16-17, they lose to the Warriors in 5. Now this is the year I believe Kevin Love was like hurt. So it's basically Kyrie and LeBron. But hear me out. Do you think the team would have been better with Jokic in year 2 Jokic or Tristan Thompson playing the 5? Because even if they had both, Tristan could come off the bench. Because Jokic at year 2 was already better than Tristan Thompson was. Right? Year 2 Jokic was already better than Tristan Thompson. He was already putting up a near triple-double in year 2. And Cleveland could have had that guy for pretty much nothing, for free. But they would have took him in the draft in the second round. And they wouldn't have had to give up nothing. And with the development of Jokic, Cleveland probably would have won back to back. They would have won back to back easily. And not only that, they might have won three. They might have three-peated because by year 3 now, Jokic is taking off. So they have Jokic, LeBron, and Kyrie. That's your big three. Well, I think Kyrie was gone at this point. Yeah, Kyrie was gone. So Kyrie was gone, but was Kyrie gone at this point? Yeah, because they traded for Isaiah and yeah, they made the trade. So, but they still would have won. You get what I'm saying? They would have been in good shape. LeBron, Jokic, Kevin Love wouldn't have been forced to play a lot. Tristan was already out of the rotation by the third year with LeBron back. So that would have been easy. I mean, they had no center. So which call would have fitted perfectly on this team. And LeBron's second go around with the Cavs. He would have fit perfectly. No doubt about it. And who knows? Maybe LeBron doesn't leave Cleveland at that point. Maybe he stays because you see Jokic. At this point, Jokic is only like 23, 24. He's a young star, right? Maybe LeBron and Jokic is running Cleveland. And LeBron's running off titles. In 18, 19, stays in Cleveland. He doesn't even go to LA. I don't know. Maybe. I'm just saying. It's an interesting thing to look at. It really is. It really is something to look at. Like I wonder if any of LeBron or Cleveland could have had Jokic right there. So Jokic was at the bottom of this draft at 41, and the what was I gonna say? Yeah, so that's the rest of the class. Go to 15. Karl Anthony Towns leading the way for the 2015 draft. I guarantee you, 2014 draft, they redrafting that. Cleveland's probably taking Jokic number 1. They're probably taking Jokic number 1 if they're redrafting that class. They are. Now, do they trade that pick for Kevin Love? I don't know. But Jokic is definitely going number 1. Or either Jokic or Joel Embiid. Now, Embiid was not healthy early on, so that wouldn't have been a good pick for Cleveland to do anyway. Unless they was going to shop it. Like if you're dumb enough to take Embiid knowing that he wasn't even healthy. That's on you. But 2015, Karl Anthony Towns, right? Top pick out of Kentucky. Almost everybody in this class has made a second contract except for Chris McCullough. He was the 29th pick from Brooklyn out of Syracuse. And RJ Hunter did not see a second contract, I don't believe. And some guy named Nicola Malatati something like that. Did not see a second deal. Rashard Vaughn did not see a second deal. Almost everyone else did. So, all in all, in that first round at least. Second round, a little bit different. Solid. Pat Covington was okay. Josh Richardson, all these guys played 8 years in the league. Solid. Rashard Holmes was decent. Played 8 years in the league. Second round pick. Martellus Harrell 8 years. Sita Asma, 6 years. So a lot of this bottom of the first, second round, none of these guys made the NBA despite getting drafted. But San Antonio, that Nicola guy, I don't know if he didn't make the league or he's still like they had to buy his rights or something. I don't know. That was 2015. I don't know what this guy deal is. He was out of Serbia. 28. He's only 28 years old, so I don't know if is he a stat. Was I know he? I think he was a stash and grab and stash, or you know what they call that when you stash a guy. So I don't know what his deal. I don't know if he's coming to the NBA or did they couldn't get a buyout for him or something. Let me see. Uh, there's some news. There's some notes here on this guy. I think. I can't really read this. Yeah, I don't know. Oh yeah, they drafted him, and then 2001 Spurs to the. Oh, he got traded. Okay, okay. In 2021, part of a 5-team deal, he got traded to San Antonio. Traded by San Antonio to Brooklyn, and that was part of that deal that had sent like a whole bunch of guys, Dinwiddie and all that stuff. So yeah, so I guess he's in Brooklyn or something. I don't know, but who knows? So he didn't make it in San Antonio. 2 years ago, they got rid of him. How about Emmanuel Mudiay? Remember that guy? 7th overall pick. They thought this guy was going to be a stud. He made all rookie team. But Jamal Murray was waiting. Yeah, they thought he was going to be really good. He started out the gate pretty good. Then he kind of just didn't really pan out. I mean, rookie season, the guy was 13-6, which is pretty good in the NBA. 19 years old. That's pretty good. But then injuries is always the key in the NBA. He didn't play. Last time he played was back in 21-22. Played 2 games for Sacramento, and then that is it. We don't know where he's at today. Maybe he's back in the Dominican Republic of Congo. I mean the Democratic Republic of Congo. Did I say Dominican Republic? I meant the Democratic Republic of Congo. He's probably back over there. But he's definitely an NBA bust. Well, he made a second contract, but still a bust. This class has some solid names, right? Kristaps Porzingis, who's now with the Boston Celtics, going into year 8. Jahlil Okafor, who got drafted probably 10 years past his in the wrong generation of basketball, right? If he'd have got drafted in the 90s, he would have probably been a solid player. But his skill set did not translate. D'Angelo Russell was number 2 overall, and Karl Towns number 1. So if you're redrafting this class, right? Let's just look at the rest of the names here. Willie Cauley-Stein, another guy who probably drafted in the wrong era. Stanley Johnson was supposed to be a two-way guy, didn't really pan out. As far as like that star all-star type of guy. Frank Kaminsky didn't really do what they thought. Justice Winslow, people had high hopes on. Miles Turner, still in the league, still solid. Trey Lyles. I mean, these are good names, right? Young guys who play like 1 or 2 years in college got drafted off the premises of their potential to be stars, right? Trey Lyles, Miles Turner, Devin Booker, Cameron Payne, Kelly Oubre, Terry Rozier, Sam Decker, right? Jerry Grant, who just got a big deal from Portland. Bobby Portis, solid pro. Hollis Jefferson, Tyrus Jones, So these guys who and then the second round guys like we were talking about Richardson and Culverton and Norm Powell. But none of these guys really got a chance to see a second they never turned out to be really big stars. I would say the biggest bust in this class, at least from a top pick, I would say Emmanuel Mudiay and Mario Henzonja. Right, those are the two top ones that I see. That I say, oh, those guys are bust. Both of those guys went fifth and seventh, respectfully. Okay, so if we redraft in this class, obviously Carl Towns still goes number one. I think number two. Well, I'm not gonna say obviously because maybe Devin Booker goes one, or maybe Kristaps Porzingis goes one. I don't think so because Porzingis has health issues. Booker could go number one. I think I still say Towns because that skill set at that size, you can't just ignore that, and you can probably build around that. Booker will probably go two, but either way, I don't think you're wrong either way. Porzingis obviously would be three in my book. 2016, led by Ben Simmons. We talked about that earlier. 2016 class. If you're redrafting this class, who goes number one? Right? Do you take Jalen Brown number one? Do you take Brandon Ingram? Do you take Jamal Murray? Right? Jamal Murray came in a year later for Denver, and now he's an NBA champion. So what do you do here if you are the if you're a number one pick? Um, I think if you're redrafting this class, you probably go. I know we have confirmation bias where we like to say, "Oh, take Murray number one because he just won the NBA title," but I'm not going to go that route. I will say that if I'm redrafting this class, I probably take either I probably go Jalen Brown or Brandon Ingram. Honestly, both of them have some good skill set. But if I want to win, I probably take Murray. Well, or Domantas Sabonis too. He's pretty good. But how many busts is in this class? Dragon Bender, fourth overall pick from Phoenix. They got the bust. He's a bust. Top five, didn't do nothing, bust. And he didn't even make it to the second contract. That's why he's an automatic bust. You're a top five pick, you don't make it to a second deal, you're a bust. You're a bust. Number five, Minnesota in these guards. What the hell? They just love drafting guards that don't pan out. Chris Dunn. Remember Chris Dunn? Out of Providence. Big East. We watched him in Big East a couple times. People thought this guy was going to be good. Didn't pan out. And I remember they was talking about Boston possibly taking Chris Dunn. I remember talking about that on draft night. They like, yeah, Boston, should they take Dunn here? Like, and they're like, you better take Jalen Brown. But they was talking about Dunn. And that pick was kind of like one of those picks that. So Jalen Brown at 3, probably taking 1 at this point. Second round picks go. Malcolm Brogdon was pretty solid. He's been a pretty good pro. He's a 15, 4, and 5 as a second round pick out of Virginia. He's been a good pro. So that was a good pick. There's some potential second round guys who are solid, like Zubac. Here's the thing: like Zubac, second round pick, 7 years in the league. He's part of this class, but the people at LA they just have Zubac as the next superstar, right? Which I don't see you how. I just don't see it. Yeah, he's getting better every year, but he's not a superstar. Okay, I think that'd be a really good NBA player for at least 10, 12 years. Um, But the Clipper fans swear that Zubac is a superstar, just waiting in the wings. I just don't see it. I don't see it. Sorry to say it, Clipper Nation, but Zubac is not a superstar. He's just not. What else we got? Okay, so but second round picks are pretty good. Zubac. This class has some names of guys you thought would be solid players, right? Look at some of these second round guys like Demetrius Jackson out of Notre Dame, Isaiah Whitehead out of Seton Hall, Steven Zimmerman, Diamond Stone, Patrick McCall, Tyler Eulis, guys like that. Check Diallo out of Kansas, who you thought would be pretty good NBA players, but most of these guys didn't even make it past their second contracts. Kay Felder, remember Kay Felder? 2 years out. So Marcus Page, 1 year out. Isaiah Cousins didn't even get in the NBA. He was supposed to be solid. So these are guys who were big time players coming out of high school, and a lot of them didn't even make the NBA or even get. That's how hard it is. Very hard to make the NBA. Late round pick Pascal Siakam, who's a pretty good player, 27th overall. He's been really good in the NBA. Sky Labricia, who people thought raw talent. This guy would be a stud in the NBA. He's one of those one and done guys out of Kentucky. 4 years in, that's all he got. Didn't even get a second contract. DeJounte Murray. So the best guys in this class was DeJounte Murray, Pascal Siakam, DeMontis Sabonis, Jamal Murray. I guess you could put Buddy Hield in there, but he's more second tier. Jalen Brown, Ingram, and I say Simmons is second tier. But other guys were considered big time players, right? Marquise Chris, they thought would be good. Jacob Palti, Don Maker. Everyone thought Don Maker was going to do something. Denzel Valentine did nothing. So, but there's some talented guys here. Some talented names. Really, some talented guys. It's just hard to make the NBA. Even though the league is weaker than it's been years prior, but it's just hard to make it. Like, cause guys, you gotta get in where you fit in. 2017 Markel Fultz class that had, think about this, Fultz pretty much about to be out the league or didn't live up to his star power. Lonzo Ball is turned out to be injury prone, so he may not even last long. Those are the top two picks. And then you had Tatum at 3, Josh Jackson, who didn't pan out, really. Josh Jackson was the 4th overall pick. De'Aaron Fox at number 5, who is a stud. Probably the second or third best player in that class. Depending on who you ask, right? Tatum's number 1 for sure. Number 2, I guess you could say, some people say Donovan Mitchell, right? I say Fox over Mitchell. So I go Tatum, Fox, Mitchell. So you can go Tatum, Mitchell, Fox. It's all up to you, however you want to do it. It's not a right or wrong. It's just an opinion. But and plus Mitchell does have a higher win share. Mitchell has a 37 win share. Even Bam Adebayo has a higher win share, but I'm still taking Fox over Adebayo. But and Jared Allen has a 44 win share. That doesn't mean he's better than Fox. So that's why win share is really not that big of a parameter. But yeah, I mean, this class was pretty good. We can't forget about Lauri Markkanen, who's a stud. This guy is a beast. He's a career 17-7, but let's not forget this season he put up 9 26 and 9 on almost 50, 40, 90. It was close. It was 49.9, 39, and 87.5. This guy's a stud, this kid. And he's a beast. He went, where they drafted him at? He got drafted 7th by Minnesota. So Minnesota did get that right, but they just couldn't keep him. So once again, Minnesota, they either can't draft or when they do draft good, they get rid of the guy before he can really pan out. So Minnesota can't keep a player, can't draft, can't do nothing. But could you imagine pairing that up with Carl Towns from the previous drafts? Woo, that would have been crazy. But now Markin is up in I think Markin was traded at that point. Wasn't that part of the deal that brought in how does that work out? Something happened where he ended up okay, let me go back. So drafted 7th overall, then he got traded by Minnesota along with Chris Dunn to Chicago. Yeah, that was the deal that brought in Jimmy Butler. Okay. Him and Zach LaVine got traded for Jimmy Butler. And then later that summer, he signed the multi-year contract. Then he got assigned to the G League the next year. Then he got called up. Then he got assigned again in 2020. Then he got called up. Then in 2021, he signs with the Bulls as part of a sign and trade with Cleveland. So the Bulls he got traded to Cavaliers, which I don't know. Why did Cleveland get rid of him? Traded to Cavaliers. And then, I know why they got rid of him. They got rid of him for Donovan Mitchell. Okay. So then the Cleveland traded him a year later, right? Along with Colin Sexton and a first round pick and like 1,000 first round picks. Jesus, that's a heist. He traded away Markkanen, a first in 25, a first in 26, and a first in 27, and 28, and 29. Wow. Holy shit. Dude, Donovan Mitchell is not going to be. Markkanen has a way higher ceiling than Donovan Mitchell. Like you're not going to win a championship with Donovan Mitchell. You have a better chance building a championship team around Markkanen because his skill set is translated more. Donovan Mitchell, you can find 5 Donovan Mitchells. You're gonna find no Markkanens. Those guys are like a dime a dozen, and he's cheap. That's another thing. He's only making $16 million a year, if that, because he signed that 21 deal back in August 21. So he's on a friendly contract when they got him. Wow. Wow. I mean, I think Cleveland dropped the ball on that one. Especially considering how good the guy played this year. Could you imagine him out in the East? What a dumb move. So Dylan Brooks, who went 45th, he was drafted initially by Houston, then ends up back in Houston? Or was that, am I bugging out? Yeah, he's back in Houston after being drafted by Houston. Played in for a couple years with Memphis. Had that whole controversy with him and LeBron back and forth. I remember Dwayne Bacon out of Florida State. Never lived up to it. Tyler Dorsey didn't live up to his hype. Thomas Bryant didn't live up. I mean, these guys are all top 25, top 50 guys in high school going into college. And they just did not live up to being good stars, to being stars in the pros. And that's typically what happens. So we redraft in this class. Tatum goes number 1, of course, without a doubt. 2018, DeAndre Ayton. This class had Marvin Bagley, Luka Doncic, Jaren Jackson Jr. A lot of these guys have already been very successful at the top of the class, right? We've seen success. This top 5 is turning out to be a very good top 5. I mean, if you take your first 5 picks from many draft classes, not many of them could be able to stack up to these top 5 guys, right? Ayton, Bagley. Now Bagley is the one that didn't really do much compared to the other 4, but you know, Bagley had potential. Um, but DeAndre Ayton, 17 and 10. Luca, 28 and 9. Jaren Jackson Jr., 16 and 5, Defensive Player of the Year. Trey Young, 25 and 4 and 9. We already know how good he is. You got the potential with Orlando with Mo Bamba. Well, he's not in Orlando no more, but I think he's with the Lakers. Was he with the Lakers last year? Mo Bamba. I think so. Yeah, he was traded by Orlando to the Lakers in February. So, he got waived by the Lakers. Oh, my bad. He's now a Sixer. Okay, so he's gonna be backing up Joel Embiid. Damn. He got traded in February, gets waived in June. They didn't even want to wait for the man. Mo Bamba. Damn. That guy got a decent skill set, though. They didn't want to wait for him. I guess that's LeBron's timetable. LeBron's like, hey, man, we ain't waiting around for you to be good. We just ain't going to do that. But you go with the rest of the class, you got Colin Sexton, Kevin Knox, who did not turn out to be good. Like, really good. Shea Gill Alexander, if you redraft in this class again, do you take Shea Gill or do you take DeAndre Ayton number 1? Shea Gill's pretty good. Michael Porter Jr. out of Missouri. Now, remember, Porter Jr. had an injury, so you're not going to take him number 1. But he definitely goes top 5. He was already a top 5 talent anyway coming out. The injury brought him back. But so obviously, if you're redoing the class now, Porter is probably in that top 5 range. But this class is turning out to be really good, right? It's a really good class. Almost everybody in the class, except for the bottom and Zaire Smith. This could be another 2011 type class. Was it 2011, 2013? I don't remember which one. The Clay class with Kawhi in them. This could be a class almost like that. Where a lot of these guys are good. I mean, the first 11 picks are all on their second deals. Most of the end of that first round is on another second deals. Then you got a bunch of guys in the second round who also are on second deals, right? Guys like Javon Carter, Jalen Brunson, who got that big deal, second round pick. Mitchell Robinson, Gary Trent Jr., Bruce Brown. These are all second round guys. So it's good when you can find the guys in the second round that produce. So you give him credit for that. That was in 2018, not that long ago. 2019, Zion Williamson. Now, obviously, if you're redrafting this class, you're probably still taking Zion, number one. But it's interesting to see the rest of this class. I think this class is not good at all. Right? It's just not a good class. I mean, you just looking at the middle of the first round and down, we just don't see much going on here. Um, yeah, it's just not a good class. But they'll fill out an NBA roster because they're young. I think what's on their side, interesting second round picks like Nick Claxton, who has some potential to be a serviceable big in the NBA. Uh, Bobo, who's taking 44. I mean, any of these guys are going to be stars? No, nobody in this class except for the top guys like John Morant, Darius Garland are going to be superstars, and Zion, of course. But the rest of the class, you're going to find some decent borderline potential all stars, and then the rest is just going to be role players. And we know that already after year three, for not 3 or 4. I would say in a couple of years, half of that, most of these guys in the first round or even second round are going to be out the league. Because that's where the new contracts are coming in. So the thing is, that's what I'm saying. Like, I think that Ben Simmons is just he's on borderline bust territory. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. Let's see. Yeah, he's on borderline bust territory, people, and that's just the bottom line. Yep, 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 yep. It's on bust territory. Oh man, call us up 877-99 on Fox 877-963-6369. One 877 cars for kids. Remember that one? So it looks like I can't even freaking I can't even join my own. Oh, okay, okay, okay. I'm trying out my trying to see if I could turn that off. All right. Let's see what we got. Yeah, I'm trying out. Shut up. I'm trying out. Damn it. Building. VCam, who are you? Get him out. We ain't got time for that. Anybody got time for that? Ooh, turn off my. Yes. All right. So we are back. Just had a little technical difficulties, and we are back. All right. So the point is that Ben Simmons is probably a bust. He is. And we know this, and most of us know this. But anyway, let's transition on before I get out of here. I want you guys to go to Sports Steady TV on YouTube, and we got the NFL 2023 previews for each and every NFL team. We just dropped a new video today, I believe, for uh for what team what that was. I gotta look. We just dropped a new video today for the Cleveland Browns 2023 season preview. So the Cleveland Browns. So go check that out on NFL on Sports Day TV, and the full show will be on Gridiron Steady channel some point in the next week. So you might want to go sub to that channel and make sure you're paying attention because we're gonna have the full. It might come out in two parts depending on how long it is because we have to do editing and all that stuff. But it's just gonna be the full one in one shot if you don't want to watch it in parts. But if you want to watch it in parts, and we're still debating should we do release it per division or just the whole thing at one shot. So if you want to vote on that, you can go to Gridiron Steady on YouTube, youtube.com/Gridiron Steady. Go to the community tab and vote if you want it released per division or each team in one shot. Now, I will say that the per division will be easier because it'll be easier to upload. But if you do it per shot, it's probably going to be like a hours long upload, and then we might have to cut it into two parts to get it on YouTube because Gridiron Steady is not that channel is not. I don't believe it's verified, so I don't know if we can break them up into two parts. I don't know how that works as far as like how long we could upload, but either way, we might have to just do like a live stream. That might be the best way. But it will be up. But if you want to see, so far we have a couple divisions up already. AFC on Sports Day TV. You can see AFC East, South, West, and North. And some surprises. I mean, it's all predictions, but there are some surprises there. That's all I gotta say. That's all I gotta say. Yep. But why they put that? I don't know. Yeah, we're about to get out of here. It's time to wrap it up. Guys, we'll be back here on Sports City Radio. Look, I put the link in. Nobody showed up. It's all good. Hopefully, maybe next time they will. I'll have the link every single time. Send us an email at sportscity@protonmail.com. If you want to be on a future episode of Sports City And we got Sports Steady TV. Go to Sports Steady TV on YouTube, Sports Steady TV on Twitter, at Sports Steady on Twitter as well, and Facebook and Instagram. All right, everyone. Peace out. Have a good night. See ya. Don't want to be ya.